Nation, you call the shots. Do you want Jim Harbaugh to be the Las Vegas Raiders head coach in 2024? Yes or no? I need the entire nation to show up for this one. Let me know down below if you want Harbaugh to be the head coach of the Silver and Black. Raider Nation, what's going on? It's Mitchell Renz here, host of the Raiders Report. And coming up on today's show, the Las Vegas Raiders have made backdoor communications with Jim Harbaugh about coaching in 2024. I am going to tell you everything that you need to know about the latest going on with the Michigan football coach Harbaugh, how it impacts the Raiders, and which teams he's potentially thinking about returning to the NFL for, because it's the Raiders and then there is another team. But I'll tell you this right now, by the time you get done watching this show, if you're not subscribed to this channel, I don't know if you're a real one. Shout out to today's sponsor, Panda Subs. They are our presenting sponsor. Panda's been around here, man, for 2 years. They've been rocking with us. Die-hard Raider fan that wants to give back to the nation during the holidays. So they just launched a brand new Panta pre-workout. It's a Christmas-themed one. If you use code Raiders, usually it's $54.99. You can actually get it, though, for $26. That link's going to be available, y'all, down in the comments, down in the description of today's show. All right, so let's talk about here the latest around Mr. Michigan himself, Harbaugh. And I got this report from a Michigan insider who I'm very close with and is very close with the Michigan football team and very close, honestly, with like the whole Harbaugh situation going on right now. But the biggest notes are that the Raiders have made backdoor communications with Harbaugh, which really shouldn't surprise anybody because of how good of friends Mark Davis is with Harbaugh and is basically friends with the entire Harbaugh family in Michigan. But here's the important one. Mark Davis will have a contract ready for Harbaugh after the college football playoffs. I want to say that again. Mark Davis will have a contract ready for Harbaugh after the college football playoffs. Now, from what I understand from that, it's not like, hey, right here's the contract, sign it, you're the head coach. I mean, you can't even do that, right? It goes against the Rooney Rule, goes against a lot of NFL rules. It's more of Mark's trying to show Jim, hey, if Michigan's not serious about bringing you back, I'm going to show you something right now that's going to prove that how serious I am, that I want you to potentially be the next head coach of the Raiders, which, when you see the rest of this story, this right here is going to speak volumes to that. So if you're wondering, all right, Harbaugh to the Raiders, why is this popping up again? Because I've heard it, I've seen it, that, let's face it, he's going to stay at Michigan, right? Well, I think I could say this. I know my fiance Alex has a lot to say. I bet you Jeremy's fiance Danny has a lot to say. I bet you a lot of y'all right now, you got your wife, you got your fiance, girlfriend, they got a lot to say and stuff too. So Harbaugh's wife has been pushing him, and right now, currently where they're at, I mean, they got all the money in the world. Maybe they want to retire. I mean, I know how tough it is to be able to hang it up after you do something at such a high level. I mean, shit, Michigan's the #1 team in the country after all. But Harbaugh's wife is pushing for him to go back to Vegas because, for those that do not know, him and his wife, they met in Vegas back in 2006 in a P.F. Chang's parking lot. And, you know, I can hear Jeremy laughing in my ear right now because I was telling all the guys about the story, because when I got the story from my Michigan dude, he was saying it was one of those situations where they're in a P.F. Chang's parking lot, and it was basically like, yo, who's that? Yeah, I need her number. And now the rest is history. She was a real estate agent before marrying Harbaugh in Vegas. Maybe she wants to do something again with her career. I don't know the ins and outs of that. All I know is that he's got his wife in his ear right now. And if you don't think that that's a important or prominent figure, then you must not be married, have a significant other, or you just use your hands a lot. Now, to make sure you never miss a moment here on the Raiders Report, subscribe for all the updates around who could potentially be the next Raiders head coach, because once the season does end for the Silver and Black, there's going to be interviews. There's going to be interviews with Anotnio Pierce. I bet you Jim Harbaugh at least gets a phone call, unless Michigan steps up to the plate, which we'll talk about here in just a second. So coming up here on the Raiders Report, the question that all of y'all are probably wondering, well, if there's been backdoor communications, if apparently Mark Davis is going to have a contract ready to go to show Harbaugh how serious he is, what are the chances that Harbaugh is going to be the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders? The answer to this is less than 5% chance. Some of you might say, one just win, baby. And the source, again, is our Michigan insider. So the person that's very well connected here is very well connected with the Harbaugh team and knows that Harbaugh right now has essentially 3 people working for him. He's got an NFL agent that's essentially handling all the ins and outs of the communication with all the NFL teams. And then he's got his Michigan agent that's trying to get him a better deal right now, a longer deal with the Wolverines. Then he's got his lawyer who's kind of just tying the bow, making sure all the I's are dotted, make sure all the T's are crossed. But the reason why it is only 5% is because I am a believer that Harbaugh returns to Michigan, because that's, from what I understand, what it sounds like. And it's also because maybe the Raiders aren't his top choice. I do need to mention this, though, because this was very important to note. Anytime that we do this show, anytime that you hear a lot of stuff on TV, there's a lot of rumors out there, right? And I always say where there's smoke, there's fire, but this is important to note that he is keeping all options open and has not given any indication of what he's going to do in 2024. He's doing that out of respect for his family, but he's also extremely doing this for the respect that he has for that team, those players, those coaches. I mean, you saw every game that Harbaugh wasn't in there after a win, they would say, hey, man, that one was for you, Harbaugh. I mean, you build a family with this team, and that's why he's not going to make a decision. So, according to my source here, with Harbaugh's lawyer, he was with Harbaugh's lawyer after the Big Ten championship game, which is kind of where a lot of this conversation started to pile on. And Harbaugh is looking for a contract extension from Michigan. I believe that his number one choice is to stay with the Wolverines, continue to what he's doing up there in Ann Arbor, and then continue to beat the Ohio State Buckeyes, right? But here's where it gets interesting. His deadline for a contract extension is on Christmas Day. So Harbaugh has told his lawyer, his Michigan agent, and the university, my deadline is Christmas. I want to know that you guys want me back by Christmas Day, which I don't really blame for Harbaugh doing. I mean, think about all the shenanigans, all the BS that went on this year. Did he know? Is he responsible? Here's the thing. When you're the head coach, you're always responsible in terms of something rather than another, right? You're the boss at a job, you're responsible. You're the dad, you're responsible. You're the mom, you're responsible to a certain level. However, though, the belief is an extension does happen before Christmas Day, which obviously is what Harbaugh wants. Here's where the kicker is, and this is, again, going back to Mark Davis having his contract ready to go if Michigan doesn't step up to the plate, because if Michigan doesn't give Jim an extension, then he won't think that Michigan is serious. And if nothing happens by Christmas, Harbaugh won't negotiate during the Michigan season. This one's really important because, again, when you think of the roller coaster ride, right? I mean, nation, think about all the roller coaster rides that we've been on between head coaches, general managers, quarterback discussion, receivers doing dumb stuff. The roller coaster ride is real. That's in the NFL. Man, you got kids, dude. You got young men, young adult that went to Michigan for a certain reason, and that program has been much better over the past few seasons. Harbaugh's done a phenomenal job. But out of respect to those players, to the coaches, the entire staff, if he doesn't get his deal by Christmas Day, he's going to wait until after the Bama game, maybe even after the national title game, because he wants to show those players that type of respect. But if they don't do it, I'm telling you right now, Harbaugh's going to walk around with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, and in the long run, I think Michigan ends up getting the deal done. Maybe it doesn't happen before Christmas. Maybe it happens in 2024. It's just going to cost them a little bit of extra money here. So coming up next here on the show, the Raiders, they're not the team that Harbaugh wants to coach in the NFL. That's the other reason why this is only 5%. When you're a guy like Harbaugh, you're going to have your picking. He could stay with Michigan. He could potentially go to the Raiders. I bet you there would be 5 NFL teams right now that would say, Harbaugh off the jump, top 3 candidate. Hell, maybe even a top 2 candidate. So he's going to get his picking. I'm going to tell you what team that he would choose the Raiders over, which, I don't know about you, sits wrong with me a little bit. But again, shout out to today's show sponsor, Panda Sups. They're hooking up here the nation with an awesome, awesome deal. Remember, this link's going to be available to y'all down in the comments and down in the description of today's show. It's called Panta Pre-Workout. And if you use code Raiders, usually $54.99, you can get it for $26. This is going to help focus, whether you're at the gym, maybe work. I know for me, when I kind of get like around 2, 3 o'clock right before I go live on the Raiders Monday and Tuesday, I'll take a scoop of this. Helps me focus up a little bit, which sometimes you need if you have your crash. I think also doing pre-workout is important to wake up your body, because if you're going to spend 40 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, heck, I know there's one guy here at work apparently works out 4 hours a day. You need to be able to wake up those muscles, get the most out of your workout, and that's honestly what pre-workout does. But the reason why this is a special deal is because Merbad, he owns Panda Sups. He's a diehard Raider fan, and he wants to give back to the nation for helping Panda grow as much as it has this holiday season. Panda is packed with reliable and effective ingredients for an amazing workout that won't put a dent in your pocket. You might put a dent in those weights after you pick them up and throw them down a little bit, because I took a scoop of this morning, and I don't know about y'all, I've been picking shit up and putting it down. Shout out to Panda. Shout out to the pre-workout. Feel pretty damn good today, I'm not going to lie. All right, let's keep this thing rocking and rolling here with Mr. Jim Harbaugh himself. And when you think about the whole situation, the Raiders would be his third option. He wants to coach Michigan first. Next option would be the Bears. And then from what I understand, it's the Las Vegas Raiders. But that's more to do with the family aspect, the wife aspect. It's not that he doesn't have a good relationship with the Silver and Black. It's not that him and Al Davis didn't have a great relationship. Yes, Harbaugh got his coaching start in the NFL back in, I want to say it was like 2001, 2002 with Al, with the Raiders. And he has that great rapport with Mark Davis. But, I mean, here's the thing. If Harbaugh wants to go to Chicago and that's his top choice, I think the Bears would be dumb not to bring him in with open arms. So you got to be able to think about this, right? With the Bears being his top choice to return to the NFL, Chicago is, and this one is actually something that when I was told, they reiterated it. Chicago is the only NFL team Harbaugh will personally reach out to. Like the Raiders, they would have to reach out to Harbaugh. It's another example of why, from what I understand, Mark is going to go above and beyond just to show Jim, hey, if Michigan's not serious, if the Bears aren't serious, well, I am a pretty serious contender. Again, it's not saying that he's going to get the job, but Harbaugh wants to know that somebody wants him. Harbaugh wants to know that he is wanted, well-respected, and he wants to be taken seriously, which is exactly what Mark Davis is going to do here. But if Chicago is the only NFL team Harbaugh will personally reach out to, that, again, speaks volumes. And the Bears are his Michigan of the NFL. If you're like, you don't understand what that means, Harbaugh played college football, quarterback, with the Wolverines, I want to say, well, it's like early 80s, I believe is what it was. And then he got drafted by the Bears, I want to say from like 1987 to 93, so basically right when I was born. So he's had those ties. He's a big-time family man. He believes in that. But the Bears also would be willing to pay him more and give him more control than what the Raiders are. So from what I understand, the Raiders are thinking about going with a little bit of a different coaching staff than what some other teams have gone with. And I talked about this yesterday on our live show. Like, they could incorporate more of a, which I love, an overall team balance where there's a lot more people giving their say and not just one man running the show. Because when you look at the Raiders, the past two head coaches, John Gruden tried to run the show. That was a shit show. Josh McDaniels tried to run the show, and that was the biggest shit show that I have ever seen. So with Harbaugh, he wants full autonomy. He wants full control. And that's actually not really the area where the Raiders are really looking to go in the future. So speaking of that, right now we have an interim head coach. And I know when I make this video, there's going to be a lot of people out there saying, well, what about AP? He still has a job to do. It's still his job to lose. It is his job to lose. Everything that I said, it's another reason why it's 5% for Harbaugh. This is Antonio Pierce's job to lose. If you were to ask the players in the locker room, who would you want, Antonio Pierce or Jim Harbaugh? And I also want you guys to answer this question because that's what this show's about. I'd say like 90-95% of those guys would say AP. They want continuity. They want somebody that they believe that they can rally around. Harbaugh has a great track record. And for this question, I'm asking who's the better head coach, because the better overall head coach, it is Jim Harbaugh. And that's not a knock on Antonio Pierce. Like, come on, y'all. Like, it's not a knock on AP. When you have the track record that Harbaugh has, he's the better head coach. However, and maybe this is me just, being the Raider fan of me, and I know Antonio Pierce, Compton, all that type of good shit. I want somebody to want the Raiders. Like, I want the next head coach to want to be the head coach of the Raiders. I don't want it to be the third option. Imagine you meet your wife right now, and you find out, oh, actually, there was another guy, and then there was another guy before you. I don't know. Like that wouldn't sit as well with me. So to me, I hear all these things. Harbaugh's obviously a great coach, but I want somebody that wants to be a Raider. And I also want the players to be able to rally around that guy. And I also want a coaching staff where Antonio Pierce, you get a say. Champ Kelly, you get a say. Patrick Graham, you earned it, you get a say. What I'm worried is if you bring in Harbaugh, there's not going to be a lot of saying going on. If you want to see some other head coaching candidates out there, I made this video right when the Raiders, maybe it's one of the happiest days of my life, when we went live for 26 straight hours and the Raiders fired the clown himself. If you want to check out this video to see some other coaching candidates for more of a in-depth look, you can. However, I do have an updated list of my top 8 head coaching candidates for the Silver and Black, which are Ben Johnson at offensive coordinator. Shane Waldron has some connections there. With Lou Anarumo, I can never pronounce his name. He's got a lot of connections as well. Great defensive coach, has a lot of success against the Chiefs, but also with Trey Brown, who is a top 2 candidate to be the next GM of the Raiders. That's an interesting connection. Dan Quinn might be the best overall candidate that's going to be out there. However, I don't really see him going to the Raiders. Harbaugh up there for head coach. The sleeper and the name that just continues to grow and grow from people that I talk to, Frank Smith. If you were to ask me, Mitch, who are the top 3 choices right now for the Raiders, I'd say it's it's Antonio Pierce's job to lose. Frank Smith is probably at 2. And if they hire Trey Brown to be the next GM, I would say then Lou, the defensive coordinator for the Bengals. I would say right now those are your top 3 options to be the next head coach of the Raiders, and you might even want to sprinkle in Jim Harbaugh there right next to 3. But if you want to give me your top 3 options, please don't be shy and do so. You can also tell me on social media. I mean, it's definitely the easiest way where you and I can have that instant reaction right away. Follow me on IG. Follow me on Twitter at Mitchell Renz 365. And again, from what I understand, the Raiders have had backdoor communications with Jim Harbaugh. Mark Davis wants to be able to show Harbaugh and all of his agents that he is serious and does have a contract ready to go. That does not mean that as soon as the college football season's over, if he's not back at Michigan, he signs the dotted line. That would be against the Rooney Rule. It would be going up against all sorts of rules in the NFL. Harbaugh will obviously have a spot here for an interview if he doesn't return to Michigan. But from what I understand, if he doesn't go back to Michigan, he's going to be the next head coach of the Chicago Bears.